On this episode of the Chris Elliott Real Estate Show, I've got Juan Jimenez, and we're talking all things home inspections. And now to the show.
Welcome to the Chris Elliott Real Estate Show, where we bring you insights into the local Central Virginia real estate market, go in depth to answer your real estate questions and concerns, and interview local figures and influencers in the greater Richmond area. And now let's get to the latest episode with your host, Chris Elliott, and co-host, Maddie Ray.
Howdy, howdy, howdy. Welcome to episode number 14. Juan, thank you for being with us. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Thanks for having me.
How you been, buddy?
Good.
You're looking good.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, you've lost some weight recently, haven't you?
I have, yeah.
Talk to me about that real quick.
Okay. Well, I lost about 40 pounds.
That's amazing.
Yeah. You know, running a business can be stressful.
A little bit.
A little bit, right?
A little bit.
So I was just...
So have you just like turned to alcohol now as opposed to food?
No, actually, yeah. No, yeah, tons of liquor and bourbon. Yeah.
Picked up smoking.
Yeah. It doesn't cause any weight gain, though.
Yeah. Insides look like crap, but man, you look great on the outside.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome, man. So you and your wife, I'll give you guys a quick little promo. You and your wife do health coaching now, right?
Yeah. So she started it. She's lost like 80 pounds.
That's amazing.
Yeah, she looks great. And then I was like, okay, maybe I should try this. And, you know, I lost like 40 and we've just been helping people. I think this year, like, I don't know, probably up to 100 people that she's helped lose a ton of weight. And so it's been really good. Yeah.
We should have her on the podcast next.
Sure, yeah. She would love that.
Yeah, absolutely. All right.
She's better looking than I am. So
I didn't want to say it, but I'm glad you did. Yeah, so I didn't have to. Anyway, all of that is super cool. But today we definitely wanted to dive into home inspection. So you are a licensed home inspector in the area. I would say you guys run one of the top home inspection companies.
Absolutely.
So we're going to jump into all that. We've got some questions that folks want us to answer. But before we get into that, talk to me about the background. How did we get up to this point? Did you just like at 3 years old, were you up on a roof pointing out lifted shingles or talk to me about the journey that brought you to this point?
So I never, you know, like most people, never thought about being a home inspector.
Probably didn't know it was a thing.
No, yeah, most people don't. They're like, oh, a home inspector? What's that?
Yeah.
So, but when I got out of the Marine Corps, like most...
Appreciate your service.
Yeah, you're welcome. Like most people, I had no idea what I was going to do.
Sure.
And I was going to college. And
you're like, I can't just shoot people for a living?
Right, yeah. No more knife hands. You know? So in between semesters, they were offering, you know, like in that December quick semester, they were offering a home inspection class. And I was like, oh, sure, I'm not doing anything else. And
nice.
Then, we were dirt poor. We were broke. And I remembered mine was like $350, $400 or something. And I was like, shoot, if I could just get one of those a month, like
I'm rich.
Yeah, right. At the time, I was like, $400. That's like my water, electricity, phone bill. Like that's everything.
Bill Gates, watch out!
Right,
We're coming to get you.
Yeah. So I took the course, and at the time there was no license.
Where were you going to school?
So I was going to school at VCU.
Okay.
The course was at U of R though.
Okay.
So I think I just saw like a flyer at VCU.
Isn't it amazing how like little things like that?
Yeah. And so, and then I took a bunch of online classes too.
Yeah.
And I just started and like, you know, everything I do is like, I got to be the best and do everything I can.
Sure.
And it just kind of blew up. So I wanted one a month and then one inspection. That's like, that was your big lofty goal. Yeah. That was like, hey, like JC, let me do this. If I can get one a month, like I sold everything to it. I sold my motorcycle, my IRA, like everything.
Wow.
Like, I had nothing left. If it didn't work then, I was screwed.
Yeah.
So, and now.
And in your business planning, you were like, I'm going to sell all this. If I could do one home inspection a month, this is going to cover everything.
Yeah. One of my friends who's like, you were dumb enough to know that, like, you were dumb enough to know that you couldn't do it or whatever, something like that. Like,
you were dumb enough to not know that that wouldn't work. Right. Which a lot of successful people I've met, it's just like they were too stupid to quit or too stupid to figure out that it wouldn't work or whatever.
Right. And so now, fast forward, we're doing like anywhere between 150 to 180 a month. So
150 to 180 home inspections per month.
We should be crushing about 200 next year if it goes to plan a month. Yeah.
Where does that put you guys as far as comparing yourself to other home inspectors throughout the country?
So, you know, nobody really publishes numbers.
Sure. But they talk.
Right. I would definitely say like countrywide, we're probably top 5%.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Because most companies are one-man shops.
Yeah.
You know, and they only need a few a month to pay the bills.
Yeah.
A few a week. To pay the bills. I would say 80 to 90% of the companies are just one-man shops.
Sure.
And then all the top companies, we're all together on Facebook and we talk and share ideas and
stuff.
And I would definitely say we're in the top.
So, and obviously that's great for Juan and for your family, but talk to me, and this is in the notes, but just kind of, spurring the question, what is the benefit to the consumer of working with a company like yours? How many crews, how many guys are on staff now or part of the team?
We usually have 3 to 4 trucks running at a time.
2 guys per truck?
2 guys per truck.
Okay,
right.
Good deal. So, what is the benefit to John and Jane homebuyer out there? They're looking to get a home inspection. Nobody researches home inspectors before they buy a house. It's usually a recommendation from the realtor. But what is the benefit to them as homeowners, home buyers, of working with a company like yours that has a bigger operation versus, hiring Larry, who's a one-man boat, one-man band with a pickup truck?
Nothing against, the one-man shops or anything. That's awesome. But,
sure.
One thing that I do see is in a week, we're going to see more stuff than a one-man shop's going to see, in a year.
Yeah.
And, we're very, we communicate a lot with each other. We have a group text and we're just constantly sharing everything, asking each other, hey, have you seen this? Have you seen this? Or, hey, check this out, check this out.
Yep.
And so it's just that,
So the exposure.
Yeah, we're, you might have a guy who's like, yeah, I've been doing this for 20 years. It's like, okay, but in a month we did more inspections than you did in a year. And not that that's what's important, but that experience. And between all of us gaining all that experience and all that exposure, and plus we have the time, to get to people and get them taken care of. But I think that's the number one thing is we just see so much. Constantly sharing and that group experience benefits the consumer.
Well, it's the same thing as like a busy realtor versus somebody that's been in the business 30 years that's sold 10 homes per year for over 30 years. It's like, hey, if I've negotiated 60 contracts over the last year, we've got our finger on the pulse of what the market is doing and things like that. So yeah. Okay. Super cool. So we talked about your background. So we kind of jumped into it, but let's take a couple steps back. So for somebody out there that doesn't know, maybe they're a first-time home buyer, maybe they went through the experience, but it was like 7 years ago and detail was a little fuzzy. Talk me to basics. What does a home inspector do, and what can a home buyer expect from a home inspector?
Sure. So the main point of what we're doing is to find the big stuff.
When you say big stuff, we're talking defects.
Defects.
Yes.
The big defects. The leaking roofs.
Sure.
Electrical hazards. Decks about to fall apart.
Sure.
The termites in the crawl space. Plumbing leaks. In the crawl space or whatever. That's what they should be expecting. We're not necessarily there for all the little holes in the wall or the little wrinkles in the carpet,
right.
or and we might note some of that stuff if we see it, but they should be expecting us to find those big ticket items that might cause them a lot of heartache and pain down the road.
Yeah.
And we're there for the major systems and components of the home. The roof, the HVAC, the electrical, the plumbing. We're not checking the alarm system or
the coffee maker.
The coffee, like, oh, dude.
The built-in Keurig.
right.
Yeah.
Like, no, sorry, or like there was a sauna the other day, and in the house.
Yeah.
And the buyer was like, "Are you checking the sauna?" And I was like, "Well, I didn't bring a towel, so
I'll sit in it." Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But just the major systems and components of a normal, typical home.
Yeah. So, talk to me through that. What is y'all's? Because I don't know the process, but I know you guys have a process because your guys are always out there and they're just kind of right on it. What is your process when you get to a home? How do you guys divvy up the work? What's the what's the process as far as what you're checking?
Sure. So we have our lead inspector who's going to be there, and that's one of the things that separates us apart too. We have our lead inspector; he's in charge, and he's checking the main.
He's a more senior.
Yeah.
Yep.
Typically more senior, or if not more senior, at least just more knowledgeable and experienced in other ways. But he's checking the main systems and components: the HVAC system, the water heater, the electrical panel, the foundation and the structure. And then we have our assistant, maybe a trainee, maybe just a newer licensed guy. And he's checking the easier stuff, the receptacles, the windows, the sinks, the toilets, tubs, showers, things like that. And then the lead is also going to go over those items as well to make sure nothing gets missed, which is nice. But that's kind of how we split up the work. And it's very efficient, which we love. We're not trying to be quick, but we are trying to be efficient so everything can get done when it's supposed to.
Well, I got to tell you, I mean, one of the things that I enjoy about using your company is because you guys have two guys, you guys can cover a lot more ground and you get things done a lot faster than a normal home inspector. And like you said, not that we're looking to get in and out in 15 minutes or we're looking to, cut corners, but when you've got one guy and it takes 3.5 hours to do, and the buyer's getting, frustrated, the homeowner's pissed off because they're having to be out of their home for 4 hours. I mean, it certainly helps when you guys have multiple guys that can just knock it out pretty quick.
Right. Yeah. And then the report, the report's usually 30 minutes to an hour.
Yeah.
There's two guys, one's driving to the next inspection, one's finishing up the report.
Yeah.
So in a transaction, when everything needs to happen as quickly as possible, getting that report an hour later is pretty crucial. Well,
I mean, when you have like a 10 to 14 day home inspection period, and maybe it takes like a week to book a home inspector, and then some home inspectors, it takes them another day to turn around the report. That can be very, very frustrating just because you're like, oh my God, we're running out of time. Like I'd rather just get this within 12 hours and then we can turn around our inspection report and do all that fun stuff. So, okay, very cool. Next question. Do you need to cut real quick?
We're good.
Okay. Do we have questions coming?
I'm typing them.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
Just wanted to make sure. All right. So we'll just jump back in there like we didn't break. Okay. So Juan, I mean, tell me, and we've kind of hit on some of the points, but what would you say separates you guys from the next home inspectors?
Sure. So there's a number of things that, that we do that you're not required to do and that some home inspectors might not do. So if you're looking for a home inspector, you should know that in Virginia, we're not required to get on any roof. So the law says we can inspect the roof from the ground if we want to.
Which is hard to do.
I think it's nearly impossible to do.
I mean, I'm no home inspector, but it seems pretty logical.
When I bought my home, the inspector, this was before I became an inspector, my first home, and he rolls up and he's like, oh yeah, I don't need to go up there. I can see everything I need to see from the ground. And then in my mind, I was thinking, it sounds weird, but okay.
But he's the expert.
Right.
Yeah.
And then, then I got into it a couple years later and I was like, what the heck? Like, no way. Like, why would he even say that?
You just have like a mirror on a stick kind of
thing?
Now
he's just like, I can see. He's in the front yard. And he's like, I can see everything I need to see from right here.
Yeah.
I was like, okay. But so we're not required to get on any roof. So I would definitely look into what they do to inspect the roof, how tall their ladders are, because even some guys will walk a roof. They carry a 12-foot, 14-foot ladder. So, if that's a 2-story house, they're not getting up there. Right. We're not required to go in any crawl spaces.
Really?
Right. So,
and when you say not required, you're talking by state?
The state law. We're not required to go into any crawl space. So as long as you document, I didn't go in the crawl space, you're good. So you want
crazy.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy. So, a lot of home inspectors tend to be like retired contractors or something, and they're like, yeah, we're not going in.
But that's the truth, though. A lot of these guys are like, it's like a semi-retirement gig. They're in their 50s, 60s. They're not looking to hustle. It's just kind of like one of those things, gets them out of the house, makes a little side change.
Right,
and
beer money. And,
nothing wrong with beer money.
No, I know. We all need some beer money.
Yeah, this is the day before Thanksgiving, so definitely need some beer money.
Right. So
we'll put your Venmo account up on the screen. Yeah.
Yeah. So you want to find out how they're going to do that. Like, hey, are you going to go in the crawl space? And the report, I would definitely look at their sample reports, because even great inspectors, they might be technically proficient, but they're writing their report and they're like, crack noted. Further evaluation by engineer recommended. And it's like, that's not entirely helpful.
And not a picture, maybe.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
We're not required to put any pictures in or anything like that. We're just required to note what we see. And so, if you look at that sample report and it's a bunch of fragments and just small descriptions of what they saw, you might want to look somewhere else, try to figure out somebody who's going to be writing full descriptions of what they saw that can really benefit you when you're buying a home.
Yeah.
Just things like that. What are their reviews like? Because
you guys have a few.
We have a few.
Yeah. How many are we up to these days?
So on Google right now we have 6 $694. On Facebook, 192 or something like that. And it's 4.9 on anything that you look at. So, there's always a couple. We can't please everybody.
Couple haters. Yeah, that's fun.
Right. But yeah, check their reviews, see how they're going to inspect the house. How long they've been doing it. Check out their sample report. And I think between those things, you're really going to start seeing a lot of differences between the different inspectors.
Well, I got to tell you, I mean, I'll give you guys props. Your reports are always great. And what I tell people is, like, if you have a bad home inspector and you're the buyer and they don't put together a proficient report, I mean, when you're negotiating repairs, you as the buyer have the burden of proof to the listing agent, the seller, that there's an issue here. And if you've got a crappy report, if they don't have photos, I mean, like, I get reports, I'm like, all right, you're saying this, there's no pictures, this is a very, amateur report. Like, it really hurts you in negotiations when you don't have good documentation as far as, like, there's issues in here, or there's actually mold in the crawl space or whatever it is. So it's one of those things you don't want to go cheap on a home inspection. Like, you're buying a $300,000 house and you want to save $50 to $100 on a home inspection. Like, it doesn't make sense.
Right.
Doesn't make sense.
It's going to cost you more in the long run.
Oh yeah, 10 times more. Yeah. So anyway, all right, we can beat that to death. Okay, so here's another good question. Juan, I'm buying a new construction house. The builder rep told me there's no need for a home inspection because we're in a 1-year period and they're going to take care of me. They're going to send me cookies at Christmas. If somebody's buying new construction, why should they get a home inspection?
That's a good question.
You guys do a lot of new construction home inspections.
We do a ton of new construction.
Aren't you like the preferred inspector for Stylecraft? Or
we had an agreement with them before where we did all of their brand new homes.
Okay.
We don't do that anymore.
You can edit it out. No worries.
But yeah, so it's a great idea to get a home inspection on a brand new home. We're not going to find 30 things. And it's not going to be like, oh, the foundation's falling apart. But we have seen, sections of roofing missing, sections of siding on, high areas missing. We've seen plumbing in the crawl space where it wasn't glued together. And, you're like, oh, there's no glue there. And I pull it apart and it's just like spraying everywhere. It's like, yep, let's put that back together.
Yeah.
Columns that are, not supporting the beam. There's a gap. Just areas of the attic just totally uninsulated, or they insulated the attic but there's like a ruler in there and they just cut off the bottom, so it says 18 inches when you're looking at it, but they cut off the bottom 12 inches, so it's like actually 6 inches of insulation.
Really?
I could go on.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, there's just it's a big process. There's the owner of the builder, right?
Yeah.
Then there's the project manager. And then there's the subcontractors, and there's just a lot of places where things can get.
And everybody makes mistakes.
Right.
Yeah.
And the building, the municipal inspectors, they got 70 houses they need to inspect that day. They're showing up real quick.
And God bless them, but they're not always as sharp as tacks.
Sure. Right. Yeah. Right. And there are some things that aren't necessarily code related, that might get overlooked that the code inspector is not looking for. So I would definitely highly recommend it. It's almost always going to be worth the price. They're always going to find defects that are going to cost more than what the inspection costs. So.
Sure. Yeah. And it could be one of those things where you never even know it's there, but it's costing you money, like insulation or something like that, if they didn't do it.
Right. Yeah.
So, okay, cool. What can, Juan, I'm a home inspector. I got my house under contract. The home inspection's booked for Tuesday, pick a day. What can a home inspector do to create a smooth home inspection process?
You mean the seller?
The seller, yeah. I'm sorry, the homeowner.
Right. So right now, one of the big things is dogs. So we kind of, like in our own home inspection community.
You guys just shoot them, right?
Right. Yeah.
We are very dog friendly.
No, I love dogs.
Yeah.
But even friendly dogs.
Pete is going to write us a letter.
Right.
We're going to get an email.
So even dogs that are friendly normally, a stranger rolls up in the house and they're going to be intimidated. They might bite or
they're just going to bark for 3 hours,
which
is a little distracting.
Yeah. So I recently had a buddy. He went into a house with a friendly dog for an inspection, got his leg mauled.
Wow.
He's not going to be able to work for a while. And so, it kind of went viral in our own community.
Sure.
And so we're all talking about it like, yeah, stop Stop putting your life at risk to inspect the back of the house, because they'll leave it, they're like, oh, well, he's just in the back, or he'll just be in the basement, or he's just in this one bedroom. And it's like,
we got to look at that.
right. So I would just get rid of the dog, for the time of the inspection, because, a lot of us, we're not going to do it. We're not going to risk, limbs to inspect the back of the house or something. And then just making sure everything's accessible. If the attic access is in the master bedroom closet, move some stuff out of there,
Sure.
Or so we're not dropping insulation on your favorite jacket or whatever. Or you got a garage and it's full to the max, but the electrical panel's in there,
all the way in the back corner.
Right.
Yeah.
We'll move some stuff. We will. Some won't move anything. But, if the inspector has to come back, that's going to slow things up. That's going to slow the report. That's going to slow, the addendum and the whole process. It can put, days onto the end of it.
And you guys are pretty professional, but just word of the wise, if you want to get a favorable home inspection report, try to keep the home inspector happy.
Right.
Like if you piss them off, there's a good chance if something could go one way or the other, it might work against your favor.
Right.
Is there anything else that folks could do? Like we tell people any burnt out bulbs, switch them out. Like, is there anything you say like, man, like now I got to write this up, but if they had just done this one little thing, they could have avoided themselves a headache?
I would say bulbs are a big one, because they're like, well, is the electrical messed up?
Explain for somebody who doesn't know what we're talking about. Explain what we're talking about.
Sure.
Here.
So we go do a home inspection and the exterior lights are a big one. So I go to turn on the exterior light.
Like a floodlight or something.
Right. Floodlight or that front door light.
Sure.
It doesn't turn on. And the buyer's like, why doesn't it turn on? And I'm like, I don't know. I didn't, all I know right
I just
now,
got here.
Right. Yeah. All I know is that right now that light bulb isn't turning on. It's probably just a light bulb.
Yeah.
But now they're like, okay, well, we want the seller to replace the light bulb so we can make sure that this fixture works.
Yeah.
And so that can take some time, or,
and it could have been a simple fix of just like change out the bulb and then that way you guys know. But now you have to write it up as like, we don't know if it could be a bulb, it could be the fixture, it could be the wiring, it could be a lot of things.
Right.
Yeah.
And so now the buyer's, unnecessarily worried about a light.
They're on guard.
Probably just needs a new light bulb.
Sure.
Simple stuff like that. Light bulbs, filters, make sure everything's turned on, all the exterior faucets and things like that. Basically, everything needs to be working and checked.
Sure.
Or it's going to just add days onto it.
Yeah. And I would say think through the things that you maybe don't regularly use. Like maybe if you have a jetted tub, go ahead and run that because those can get clogged. If you have a gas fireplace, go ahead and turn that on because air can get stuck in the lines and stuff like that. So simple things you can do to avoid a headache when it comes to the home inspection.
Right.
All right. So now the part of the show that I'm looking most forward to, because you guys have a very, who runs your Facebook page?
I run everything on the Facebook
page.
Okay.
So you guys have a very funny Facebook page where you're always posting pictures of like just crazy stuff that you guys are seeing. But tell me some of maybe the funniest or the craziest stories that you can afford to tell us on something that will be out on the internet.
So, I try to make inspections entertaining, but for the most part, they're boring.
Yeah.
But one of my favorite stories, it's not a defect, but the buyer shows up. She's a wife, and she's like really nervous. She's like, Juan. I'm like, what? She's like, I'm so nervous. I'm like, why? She's like, I really need this inspection to go well. Like, okay, like what's going on? She's like, my husband doesn't know I'm buying this house. Like, okay, yeah. And he's coming later. He doesn't know. And I'm like, okay, I need you to measure this. I need to know. He's really tall. I need to make sure he's going to be able to fit through. And I'm like, okay. Like,
oh my gosh. Did the husband show up?
Yeah, he shows up later and you can just see he's like very upset. He's like, like looking around, like all disgruntled.
Was it like new construction or what was the deal?
No. It was like a 30, 40-year-old house.
She just went out and bought a house.
Went and bought a house. Yeah.
That's insane to me. Like, who does that?
Yeah, she did that. So yeah, it gets really interesting sometimes when like spouses are getting divorced or they're fighting. Like, yeah, it can be fun.
Have you ever had any where like the homeowner wants to be there for the home inspection?
Oh, they're the worst.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which we'll say, to be fair, as a homeowner, it's still your house. You have the right to be there. Highly recommend you don't be there, but
right. There's times when they're following us around and like, oh, why are you taking that picture? Like, because this is wrong. Like, no, I did that myself.
Yeah.
That's why it's wrong.
Yeah.
Like, oh, my neighbor's an FBI agent. He fixed it. Like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care.
They must have a carpentry school and FBI training.
Right.
Yeah.
I didn't know they did that in the FBI.
Yeah, that's awesome. Never heard of that division.
Right. So yeah, no, homeowners following us, or sometimes, like I'll go up on the roof and, I'm doing my thing, and then all of a sudden I see the buyer behind me. I'm like, what are you doing up here? Like,
oh yeah,
get down.
It's like the things like you don't think you have to tell people,
Right,
but you're like, okay, we're like, you're not going to go on my ladder.
Right.
Yeah.
No, but you have to tell them sometimes. And yeah, one time I caught a house on fire.
I almost caught a house on fire one time. Oh yeah, messing with the electrical panel. Yeah, I realized I don't touch electrical panels now. Yeah,
Don't do it.
Tell me the story about how you caught a house on fire.
So, like a gas fireplace that vents out the side of the house, through that metal vent.
Yeah.
Like a chimney.
Yep.
So, I turned it on, and I'm by myself too. I don't know where the realtor went. The buyers weren't there, but I was by myself. So I turn it on, so I smell smoke. I go check the fireplace. It looks fine. I'm like, okay. But then I go to check the front door. I'm opening up, checking the doorbell, and I see the smoke like coming out from the side of the house past the front. And I was like, oh my God. So I run to the side of the house, and that vent is like flaming. And I was like, oh crap. So
that's a bad day.
Yes. Yeah. It was like in the beginning of my career too. And it was like, that's it. It's over. This house is going to burn down. I'm not going to be able to afford this.
I don't think my insurance will cover this.
Right. So I find like a bucket or something, and I'm like running back and forth, putting water on it.
Yeah.
Luckily, somehow, I don't know how, but like there was no damage to the vinyl. Only the fire stayed like in that metal vent. And I looked inside, and there was like a bird's nest or something, and it had just ignited. And so now, whenever I do the inspections, I'm always
we're definitely getting that email from Peter.
Right. Yeah, I killed some birds. I think it was cold out, so maybe they had gone already. I don't know.
Yeah, sure.
But yeah, I always check now, and if I see like any foliage or bird's nests in there, I'm like, this is a fire hazard. I recommend cleaning this out.
Yeah. That's hilarious.
Yeah,
oh my goodness.
Yeah, but no damage. I don't know who was looking over me that day. But
yeah, that's awesome.
Lucky. Yeah,
that's awesome. All right. Well, now we're going to jump from the main part of the show. We're going to jump to the fire round, where we take your questions that we got from our Facebook and Instagram pages. And now to the fire round. Daniel, hit us up with the fire round questions.
There we go.
All right, so we're in the fire round right now. Getting a little hot in here. One had to flex his guns. So, Daniel, what questions did we get from Instagram and Facebook?
All right, we got some good ones. So the first one is, Juan, what's your worst nightmare to see on a job?
Okay. I definitely think it comes down to like hoarders. That's pretty rough when you walk into the house and there's just stuff everywhere. And one time
we're not sure if there's a floor in here.
Right. No, yeah, for real.
Further evaluation is needed.
But I did the last hoarder house I did. The owner was there. Obviously, a lot of them don't leave, and so I forgot why, but I moved this ottoman out of the way.
Big mistake, buddy.
And there's a gun on the floor, which doesn't really scare me, but I was like, oh crap. And he's like, oh, there it is. I've been looking for that. Like, oh my gosh. So yeah, hoarders and animals are definitely like the things that scare me.
Nice.
All right. So our next question is, what requirements are there to become a home inspector in Virginia, and what did you go through to become one?
Sure. So those are actually two different questions, because I became a home inspector about 8 years ago. And when I did, there were no requirements, none in Virginia. So
there were always like certifications.
It was voluntary though.
Right.
So you could voluntarily be.
So you could literally just slap on your business card "home inspector" and you were in business.
Anybody could.
Isn't
Anybody and everybody. So up until 2017, one day you could be a baker, which is fine. And then the next day you could be like,
nothing against bakers.
No, and nothing against anybody who wants to get into the business. It's totally cool. But you could literally the next day be a home inspector and be like, hey, Chris, I'm a home inspector now. Can you send me business?
Yeah.
That's insane to me.
Yeah. So
can you prepay? Because I need to buy a ladder.
Right. So now it's still pretty minimal. You need like a 35 or 70 hour in-person class. And then
that's not minimal though. We've talked about that. I mean, that's kind of
yeah. I mean, when you put it in perspective, like a cosmetologist has to do like thousands of hours.
Oh, I know, it's crazy.
Yeah. So somebody who's gonna like do your makeup or cut your hair needs so many more hours than a home inspector does.
Yeah.
So it's a quick, 1 or 2 week in-person class, and then as little as 25 inspections where you follow another inspector, or the licensed inspector follows you, and then you have to pass this test that's fairly easy, and that's it. And then you need insurance, general liability. So it's still pretty easy to become an inspector in Virginia, which is why it's then so important to do some of the other stuff we talked about when looking for an inspector.
Yeah. So our next question is, I assumed that a home inspector was just an employee of the county. Is there a difference between the private inspector that comes from the county?
Right.
Or the private inspector and somebody who comes from the county, rather?
Good question.
Yeah, it's a good question. A lot of people think that we're the same thing or whatever, but so the inspectors that are hired by the county, municipal inspectors or building inspectors, county inspectors, whatever you want to call them, they're looking for compliance, code compliance, typically when a new home is being built or when you're going through a major renovation or something like that. And so we're independent. We work for the people who hire us, not the county, and we actually aren't looking for code compliance. In fact, we're legally prohibited from looking for code compliance. If we were to say this is not up to code, we're now acting outside of our authority because only somebody hired by the county can legally say if something's up to code or not. So that's kind of the big difference, is that code compliance and that authority to say something's code compliant.
Interesting.
All right. So the next question is, what happens if you miss something on an inspection?
That never happens, right?
Never, ever, ever.
I've gotten a few of those phone calls.
Right. So I think for the most part, one thing to keep in mind is, missing something means that they were required to see it. And so, you have to understand what's included in the inspection beforehand to figure out if the inspector missed something. And then the other part of that is, did it exist when the home was inspected? So, AC breaks a month later, like, oh, you missed this. Well, it was working, so we didn't miss it. Or, no, that section of the home was unavailable. Maybe there was a dog, So if we couldn't access it, then it wasn't missed. But okay, so it was accessible. You were supposed to find it. What do you do? Most inspectors are pretty upstanding people, and they're going to take care of it. As long as you communicate it with the inspector, like, hey, look, this was supposed to be inspected. This was missed. What can we do about it? Most inspectors are going to take care of it. I think, though, just, understanding that the inspection is only good for that day. They're not telling you that things are going to continue to stay in that condition is pretty important.
Cool. So our last one is, the last time that I sold my house, my realtor recommended that I get my house inspected before I listed it. Is that something that you would recommend?
Yeah, obviously, it depends, because if you're not looking to make any repairs, then you probably shouldn't get an inspection, right?
Then you got a disclosure issue.
Right, exactly.
Yep.
And I think a full inspection is sometimes a little unnecessary. Generally, if your appliances work. If the HVAC system works. If there's a leak under the kitchen sink. You generally know those things, and paying for the full inspection might be, unpractical or impractical, sorry. So, but what I always recommend is like those areas that you don't see: the roof, the attic, the crawl space, and sometimes the exterior of the home. Because people, you're there, but you spend most of your time inside. Because that, the crawl space is usually what kills the deal.
Yeah.
And if you can address those issues beforehand, I think that'll make for a really smoother process. You could probably save money too if you can address some things that, you can address with a contractor, as opposed to, the
buyer dictating
who
they want
exactly,
to do the
or
work.
how they want it done.
Sure.
So if you can at least get those areas taken care of before you list, I think that could be incredibly beneficial.
Awesome. Well, guys, that was show number 14. Juan, thank you for coming out. If somebody wants to get to know you guys, your company, they want to reach out to you, Daniel will link up the information, but where should they reach out? Where can they find you?
Sure. Well, Facebook's probably the number one place where you can see what's going on with us and what we're doing and what we're finding and how we run. So you can go on Facebook, just look up A House on a Rock Home Inspections, or you can just give us a call if you're ready to book, 804-269-4321.
Awesome. Thank you guys for tuning in. We'll see you on the next show.
Thanks for joining us for the Chris Elliott Real Estate Show. If you have any questions or suggestions for future episodes, please contact Chris Elliott at chris@chriselliottrealestate.com or by phone at 804-980-1898. And please join us again next time for the Chris Elliott Real Estate Show.